Good afternoon, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show, fueled by coffee, cranberry trail mix, and anything else that looks good at the moment. Today's topic is we're going to talk with a flight attendant union leader, and she's on the Hill. And this show really points out what's going on with Medicare for all. We've had this insidious trap and really disingenuous people, and you know where it starts. It starts with the health insurance people and the big pharma, and what they're trying to tell us is that union people might rather have their own health insurance that they've negotiated for rather than national health insurance. And so we've got someone telling us the truth about that and how the lies are spread around, how most people in unions feel about Medicare for all. And again, at the end of the video, if you could make comments, especially if you're a union person, if you could make comments either supporting or rejecting the points made today, that would really be useful, because this is going to be a big deal when we're talking about single payer health insurance. These kinds of arguments, it's really good if we can track down who's saying them. If we go back to yesterday, we were talking about a cabal of people in Hollywood where messages can be shared in just a few clicks with lots of people, so you can get your favorite politician and your favorite NBA player simultaneously without the typical observer knowing they got the idea from the same person, sharing some idea about, say, Medicare for all, and saying that union people don't like it, which is bullshit. But we don't even know where such ideas come from. So moving ahead to the Hill here, we've got this person, Crystal, talking about kind of setting up our guest here, union leader from the flight attendant union, giving her the good questions. She's the good cop in this, and then Sogar is the bad cop. He's talking about the kinds of questions that might be the gotcha questions that might be coming up on CNN or MSNBC. And I think the guest realizes, I can't remember her name, but I think she realizes that he's setting her up in a way. He's a friend, he's a progressive, but he's asking her the questions that she's probably going to get going forward. And she handles them very well. So let me jump right to that. This is I'm just giving you part of this, of her explanation for why union people are better off with Medicare for all.
Look at the cost of insulin as the perfect example, right? Costs $3 a vial to make. They charge us $320 a vial. Meanwhile, you can go across the border to Canada and get it for $30 a vial. I mean, it's just highway robbery. No matter what you do, as long as you keep the profit motive at the center of the system instead of focusing it around care, you're going to have people finding ways to take advantage of our citizens and deny them the care that they need. What I'm curious about, though, is how much unanimity is there within the labor movement around the view that you just espoused? I mean, how much support for Medicare for all is there within the labor movement?
It is a broad support. It is broad support. And that's because union members are experiencing what union leaders are experiencing at the bargaining table, that we know that every single time we have to have a discussion about how much time are we going to spend on negotiating health care and how much of our capital at the bargaining table are we going to spend on negotiating health care. And people in many cases are having these discussions over and over again. And every single time union leaders are coming back and saying, hey, our companies are saying they can't afford this health care. Where do you want to take the cost cuts? Do you want to take it in the premiums? Do you want to take it in the deductibles? Do you want to have options on that? And so the discussion is always around how are we going to minimize the damage of it being eroded every single time. And so this has been a recurring theme. Union members get that across the country. And just yesterday, I'm told that there was a huge cheer from about 1,000 delegates at a building trades convention for Bernie and his discussion around Medicare for all. And when there were candidates who were talking about these incremental changes and keeping the healthcare plans that are in place today, there was no reaction. So this is really something that's very unifying for union members across the country and for all the people that they care about who are not union members and don't have access to the same health care.
Sarah, do you worry, though? I mean, you said yourself, you've got the Cadillac plan.
Now, just letting you know, I don't think he really is coming from the place that his question is. He's playing devil's advocate here.
If you go to a Medicare for all system, it's going to be disruptive. There's not an explicit guarantee that the level of care is going to be the best as opposed to what they had under private healthcare system. Ultimately, if you decide healthcare is a human right and you provide it to everybody, then the level of overall aggregate care could go down, at least in the short term. Do you think that your union members would stomach that in order to go to a Medicare for all system?
Well, look, our union members not really fooled by that.
Do you see her face? Well, look, she knows it's a gotcha question. She knows it's bullshit. And then she's like, yeah, we're not fooled by that. These are the kinds of questions that you're going to bump into in newspapers, in magazines, on television, in corporate sponsored news. That very question, the way he asked it. So it's very good that he's asking that, and her answer is very good.
Because what they're experiencing right now is not good healthcare in a for-profit system.
Okay.
And that's what they're telling us over and over again. And they're tired of having this at the table. They're saying, get it off the table so that we can negotiate higher wages, so that we can address the safety issues at work, the quality of work-life issues at work. And they're saying, we're done being fooled over this. We're done having this discussion. Let's have a healthcare system that actually works for everyone.
Sarah, while we have you here, you have your finger on the pulse of the labor movement in this country as much as anyone that I know. We spoke to Stephen Greenhouse, former labor reporter for the New York Times yesterday, and he told us that support for labor unions was basically at an all-time high. Of course, we've seen tremendous energy around teachers' movements. We've seen more actions, more strikes, more sort of energy around labor and recognition of how important unions are. I mean, is that a trend that you see continuing? Is that what you're hearing and experiencing as you're traveling the country?
Absolutely. There's a super amount of excitement, and people know that the system is not working today. So everyone understands that this growing inequality is killing us as a nation. Everyone understands Unite Here's slogan of one job should be enough, because everyone's experiencing the fact that you have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to get by. So there are people who are hurting and looking for answers, and as they start to hear about the labor movement and see the labor movement on the move, they're getting excited about that, and young people are getting excited about it and wanting to be a part of it. But the thing that's really going to create a resurgence in labor is helping to understand that unions are for every single worker. This is not a club. This is something that's open to everyone. And so what's been exciting over the past year is to see the union members who are actually leading this resurgence. You see women, you see people of color, you see people in low-wage jobs making huge gains and actually creating a union contract where one job can be enough. So when you have these very positive results and you get results right away, you're not waiting for the next election for some savior to come save you.
There you go.
We're actually helping people understand you have power right in your community, right in your work site, right where you are. And although there's a ton of organizing that happens before these strikes that we see, what the nation is seeing and what the workers themselves are experiencing is that when they come together and express that power together, through a collective action, that they're getting results sometimes in a day, in 5 days, in a week, 60 days at most in the Unite Here Marriott strike. So people understand that there's an option here to change their lives and change their lives now. And when they understand that unions are not necessarily what they thought it was, which is something that was demoted and talked about as a issue of the past, something that built the middle class, something for yesteryear. These are living, breathing people who represent all of America, who fight for equality, who fight for freedom, who fight for the right to speak up and protest and actually teach people how to participate in our democracy. So that's the excitement around it, and people are really looking for an answer, and they're starting to see that more and more because of the results that unions are getting.
Well,
there you go. That's the difference. If you're my age, I'm 57. So I've looked at a lot of life. I've lived through a lot of things. I've waited for my whole working life, my whole adult life, for things to get better. My own story is I've waited for education to get better. I've waited for kids to be provided with a balanced education that includes the arts, that includes beauty and joy and theater and dance and pottery and the whole, all of the elevating, humanizing things, philosophy and religion and languages and the study of more than just learning how to do a job and fitting into the machinery. So I listened to what she's saying with breathless anticipation, because she's saying we can make change in a day or two, because they tell us, oh, all you have to do is vote for the right people. And I've been voting a long time, and it doesn't seem to matter if the Republicans have the Congress or if the Democrats, or if there's a Republican president or Democrat, or even if there are conservative versus liberal Supreme Court justices. I haven't seen a lot of change. Things don't look that different from regime change to regime change. It's really the same over and over. And so the Democrats in particular say, well, I get things done. I'm working to make changes one small step at a time, and nothing really ever happens. So when you talk about labor movements, I was involved in a strike a few years ago where we could see, even though we went out, we went on strike, and then in a few days they called us off, and we should have been on strike a lot longer. And what we would have ended up with would have been a lot more exciting, a lot more like justice. For example, we didn't negotiate class sizes, and in many semesters, I've had over 500 students to teach by myself with no grad assistance. And you may think, well, if you're a truck driver, your life is harder than mine. And you're right. But even so, things could be better for truck drivers and for teachers if we all stick together. And if we go out on strike together, I think we can do a lot more than we can at the ballot box. Because I think the whole democracy, so-called, based on how we vote, is rigged. It's just rigged. It doesn't get anything done. So to me, labor, and Bernie's a big union guy, I feel like if we create an environment where labor and strikes and pickets and protests are encouraged, like things that are similar to what's happened in Puerto Rico or in Brazil with the truckers, or other places in South America where big groups of labor have stood up together, I think we can make big changes, and we don't have to wait for the right politicians, because every politician we've had in my memory have been owned by big money. So I don't see how we're going to get anywhere until we start to shut down the influence of big money. So I was really excited to hear Sarah, I think she's the president of the flight attendant union. I was really excited to hear how she handled. You can find more about the flight attendants union and the nurses union that should really excite you. And as she said, teachers, wildcat strikes in West Virginia and other red states where teachers have risen up and said enough is enough. I'm a member of a Facebook group that has over 25,000 disgruntled truck drivers in it, and I'd say we need to really think about the power, the dynamite that we can unleash through the labor movement. So that's the topic today. By tomorrow, I'll have something else, so I hope to see you tomorrow. In the meantime, keep drinking your good organic coffee and have a great day.